Hey, what's going on? I got a special guest today. His name is Fred Joyal. He's an entrepreneur, speaker, business advisor, and a number one Amazon best-selling author. He co-founded the most successful dentist referral service in the country, 1-800 Dentist, which in his 30 years as CEO generated over $1 billion in revenue. Along with his achievement, he has also been awarded the Conrad Hilton Distinguished Entrepreneur Award by Loyola Marymount University. He's written two best-selling books for his industry and also written and appeared in over 200 television and radio commercials. Fred started as an extremely shy person, too timid even to make a phone call, and transformed himself into someone who has done stand-up, improv comedy, spoken to audiences over 5,000 people, met dozens of celebrities, and just by being bold, found love, joy, passion, and success. Fred, welcome to the Clockedin podcast.
No, thank you for having me, Jordan. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here too. So, Fred, tell us, where does this story of yours start? 1-800 Dentist, not a dentist. Where does this start?
Yeah, so I was a copywriter in an ad agency. I had wandered through all sorts of jobs that I didn't know what I wanted to be at all. And then I walked into an ad agency, and if you're lucky, this happens to you. You go, oh, these are my people. This is something I could do. And so I figured out how to get a job there and did it for a few years, but I didn't like the career arc of the business because advertising, you keep making more and more and more money, and then you hit 50 and it drops off a cliff and no one will hire you. So you'll go from
Yeah,
making 300 grand till you can't get 70 grand. Oh, and I
yeah,
watched it happen to the senior guys in the agency. So I thought, I don't want this to happen to me. So I'm gonna need my own business somehow. And this other friend of mine had gotten the 800 dentist phone number when 800 numbers first came out, which was in the
Oh, wow.
70s, late 70s. And he said, look at this dentist, 7 letters, said, the word, there's very few 800 numbers that came along that were 7 letters that were exactly what you did, flowers, mattress, dentist, and very
Yeah.
few others. And so he was like the laziest guy ever. So he was never going to turn it into a business. But he said, you work in advertising. I think you could turn this into something. And I said, well, I'm not working with you because you don't work. So he said, no, I'll license you the phone number. And so another friend of mine who was a stockbroker who was tired of losing money for people said, let's do this together. So we were young and naive enough to think we could just pull it off. And we raised 30 grand from our family, beat the streets finding some dentists. Now, we knew nothing about dentists except that they needed patients, some of them. And so we set up a little phone room, 200 square feet in this phone room. And we didn't even have chairs. We actually, my partner had a side business, a flower delivery business at one point, and he had all these plastic 5-gallon buckets. Those were the chairs we used for the first month because we didn't have a budget for furniture. But we
Oh my
found
God.
18 dentists to go along with it. And I wrote some radio ads. We started running radio ads. We got 50 phone calls the first day. And we thought,
Wow.
and this was in LA, this was just our little, the first market. And so we went, wow, this might actually work. So we just kept adding dentists and spending the money on advertising. Just every penny that came in, we'd spend it on advertising. We took enough money to pay our rent and feed ourselves, and that was it. And then when we switched to television from radio, the whole thing blew up. We created one commercial, and for some reason it resonated with people, and we ran just that one spot for a year, and then just started popping our cities: San Francisco, San Diego, Sacramento. Then we jumped to New York, and then Chicago, and then we hit all of the bigger cities first. Eventually became nationwide, and it got way bigger than we imagined. And the technology kept advancing, and we just kept getting better and better at buying the advertising and finding clients, and built a great team, built a fabulous company that endured for a long time. Still around, but not, 800 numbers are pretty irrelevant at this point. So
Yeah.
they
Wow.
don't do any TV advertising at all anymore.
That's incredible. So
So,
how old were you at that time when you guys took the leap? Because I know there's a lot of
when I was in the ad agency, I had turned 30. So
okay.
I was 31 when I started 800 Dentist, and then
Mm,
and it was so interesting because we went from broke basically over the first 2 years to, like, in the third year we both made like $100,000. In the year after that we each made $300,000, and then it
wow.
just kept going up. And we
And
laughed because we said, remember when we just used to want to make 100 grand? Wouldn't that be great to just make 100 grand? Now we laugh and say, imagine if you could live on 100 grand. That would be amazing. So
I, no, I find it really interesting because it's 31 years old. Everyone's like, I got the family, I got this, I'm doing that. Um, it's keeping up with the Joneses. Were you concerned about that at all? Like, where it was, hey, we're leaving this job and now we're heading up into startup land.
we were lucky enough not to be married with kids or to have
Okay.
mortgages. So
Okay.
uh, we had a lot of room. We didn't have far to fall if we screwed up.
Yeah.
We didn't have somebody at home going, these kids need food. So that made a big difference, because
Absolutely.
at a certain point you can't take these gigantic risks, which is basically risking everything, because it takes all your time and all
Yeah.
your energy and all your focus, and you could be wrong. You could be completely wrong. In 2 years you figure out this isn't going to work. The market doesn't care. uh, and so and if you haven't, and most businesses fail because they don't have enough money. They get almost to that point where they can break through, but they've run out of money and they can't raise it. Most of the entrepreneur level, they
Yeah.
miss that last step where they can break through because they can't raise any more money. They've tapped everything, and we tapped everything too. At one point, we were taking little bank loans for $3,000 at 20% interest and stuff like that.
Oh my
Just to
God.
just that, yeah, oh yeah. I mean, when we started, interest rates were insane. I mean,
Yeah.
interest rates in the early '80s, a car lease was 20%. It was nuts. It's like like car leases are free now. It's like I want to buy 20 cars just because the interest is so cheap. I don't,
Yeah.
but just the idea of it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
To have people are really used to low mortgage, low interest rates. This was a way different time. This was coming out of the recession, and then Reagan sort of stepping in and gradually working the country through it. But we had a gas crisis. We had all sorts of stuff going on in the economy that was not helpful. So
Yeah.
here we are, and it, the really big thing, and I like to remind people of this, particularly now when everybody's trying to work from home and start these virtual businesses. Part of the reason we succeeded is we were in 200 square feet for 2 years starting the business. We heard everything everybody was saying. And we would go to lunch and talk about the business every day. What are we going to do here? What are we going to do there? How do we solve this? Half the time we'd hire the waitress that was the nicest in the restaurant, have her come answer the phones for us. So that compression of everybody working together was how everything developed. Because my partner was the pitch man. He was the one on the phone selling to dentists and training other people. And he would listen to everything that they said. I still laugh because I can picture him at one point. We're all in these little cubicles together, and the sales guy is yakking away at something, and then Gary leans back, looks at him, and says, "Never say that again." And then goes back because whatever the guy said was like totally not what we did, or pointless or ridiculous or whatever, right? But that incubation was really powerful to shape the whole business, because we had to figure out we didn't know, and there was nowhere to look for information. How do you set up a phone room? How do you start a call center? How do you script it? How do you run a database? Databases. We had 2 floppy drives. We had the hardware and
Oh
the
my
program
God.
and the data were 2 floppy drives. Those were our first computers. There was no hard drive in the computer. So I was writing the first database of all of the dentists, which is a joke to call it. It's like I was coding. It's like the most simple approach. We had to figure out everything, create the ads, buy the media, track all of the results, do all of that stuff, and then do all the business stuff, pay your taxes, figure out all of those things, to be in compliance and stay afloat and meet payroll and deal with people working for you. So it's
Wow.
it's very powerful. Whenever I talk to people, I say try to be in the same room as long as possible at the beginning, because you need to figure out what's actually working and what's not working with the business. You think but you have to launch it, run it, and we had to do a major pivot. Once we got to about 100 dentists, we had to completely change our contract. And that was a huge challenge to the business, because we had sold territories. It was like a real estate deal. It's like, because we didn't know how many patients they were going to get every month. So we said, all right, well, you have these 2 zip codes and you have these 3 zip codes. And some guys would get 50 patients in a month and another guy would get 10. So we had to change it to an average number of referrals per month. And it wasn't easy. And a couple of guys sued us. So here we are, we're learning about litigation in business. And we had to figure our way through that and how you settle that. The number one way you settle it, get a better lawyer. But as soon as we switched lawyers, they settled in 3 days, because our lawyer just kicked their ass in a deposition, and they just went, "Oh my God, this guy's good." And they just went, "How do we resolve this?" And we went, "Good, let's resolve it." But there's nothing more expensive than a cheap lawyer. We learned that lesson. So,
when did you start really investing into the business? Not in the regard of, hey, we're buying ads or we're doing this, but really like upgrading the lawyers, the accountants, the everything, so that you guys avoid issues and it becomes a proactive thing. Because obviously when money's tight, it becomes difficult to go, hey, let's get the most expensive guy, and you're sitting there and you're on this conundrum of, what do I do next?
It was when this came up, that's when we said, you know what, we can't cut these corners anymore. We need to pay good money for specific services, and it's usually advice. It's legal advice, and eventually, by the time we were 5 years in, we were big enough. We just said, let's have in-house counsel, because you have to, if you're doing all of these things that we were doing, it involved a lot of contracts and a lot of business deals, and we realized it was actually cheaper to have in-house counsel, because you could get stuff done instantly. And we trained her to say, okay, this is what's going to happen. These are the risks you should take, but this is when it's going to go bad. Because the safest path for any lawyer that's a corporate lawyer is just say, don't do it, right? Because then he's not going to be wrong, because it won't go badly. So we got her to understand, tell us how much risk we're at. And is it stupid, or is it chancy, or is there some risk? So we could decide to go or not go, knowing what the risks were going to be. And most of the time, nothing bad ever happened. The only time it didn't go well is when I wasn't buttoned up, because this is a real idiocy of it, is I was writing the contracts originally. I was pulling stuff from everywhere and creating my own contracts without even showing them to a lawyer. Like, it's a miracle we survived that. But eventually you realize it's not an expense, it's an investment in your success, is getting the right kind of people. There's stuff you cut corners on, and there's stuff you don't do cheaply because it catches up to you faster than you think.
Wow.
Even insurance and stuff like that, making sure that you've got the right kind of business insurance. These you can't even imagine paying for them when you're starting. But
Yeah.
even things like key man insurance. We're going into the weeds here, but people need to hear this stuff. You get to a point if you got, let's say you've got a super coder in your business, which we had a couple of those in our business as well. You need life insurance on those people, because on the outside chance that something happens, you are going to spend hundreds of thousands, if not millions, trying to survive their demise.
Yeah.
So you gotta have coverage. You
Yeah.
know, I've actually partners in a cannabis business right now, and the head grower he's like a plant whisperer. So we have to insure him, because if anything happens to him, nobody knows how he does it, because
Yeah.
it's in his head. It's like it's in his spirit. So to protect the business, you got to have business loss coverage. You got to have key man insurance. So you
Yeah.
learn all these things as you go. If you know how hard it's going to be, you would never do it. So you have to be naive enough to just go, oh, I can figure this out. And that's who succeeds. The people who are crazy enough to start, you get in so deep, you have to figure stuff out.
Yeah.
And it also helps not to have too much money. I've seen a lot of people, they raise too much money and they blow it because they don't know how to be stingy with it. They throw money at problems rather than brains at the problem. We never had the money, so had to figure out other ways to solve problems, and it made us more creative and more inventive. And we didn't blow the money. Some people, if you throw money at a problem and make it go away, you didn't learn anything. You sort of
Yeah.
erased it, or you buried it in money. And eventually it's not a solution. When you get bigger and bigger and bigger, you can't keep throwing, when the decimal places move over, you can't keep throwing money at these problems. So
Yeah.
you have to always, you need enough money, but it's too much money is just as bad as not enough in most cases.
That's
A lot of
interesting.
people
Yeah.
and raise it, and of course at some point you get in trouble. This is the other thing we sucked at, was building a war chest. We hated to pay taxes, so we distributed all the money all the time, which was foolish. Eventually you have to accept the fact that taxation is part of your life.
Yeah.
And so we never built up what was a good enough war chest, so that when there were times where we needed cash, we would have to borrow, or we would have to make some maneuver, or eventually a couple of times we had to bring in minority partners. At
Can
a
you
certain point, you lose
yeah.
control of a business.
Can you explain that a little bit more about the war chest? And I think I understand where it's it's very different than a normal employee. When you're running a business, you can pay the taxes at the end of the year. Well, you can just invest in different things, and it becomes a tax deduction and whatnot. But you're telling me that you guys would go over the top and not leave anything left over. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so we would always plan to pay our taxes, but we never had any shock absorber money, which is what you should have in your personal life as well, because
Yeah.
a lot of people live, two paychecks away from bankruptcy. They blow the transmission in their car, they're done for. They got no car anymore because they don't have
Yeah.
$3,000 to put a new transmission in their car. There's nobody that says, oh, well, there's no medical insurance on your car, and so you need to, as you get bigger and bigger, you need to aggregate capital for when unexpected stuff goes wrong, or an opportunity comes along where, the example is, we found a business we really wanted, and it was only about $3 million to buy the business, but we didn't have all the 3 million. So we had to make we were going to lose the business. because they weren't going to take a payment plan or whatever. And so we had to bring in another partner he actually lent us the money, but he had a high interest rate that so he gave us two of the $3 million, and we were able to buy that business. Now, because of that, we're stuck with the loan with him.
Yeah.
But we've got the business. But we could have, if we didn't have the other $1 million, we wouldn't have been able to buy the business. And that business is going to be an accelerator.
Yeah.
And of course, there's 10 more chapters to that story, because the guy who lent us the money eventually got desperate for the money back and took a big discount on his interest to get the money back. And we had it at the time, which was, that's when we started to get smarter and have the war chest. And so he was like, can I get the $2 million back? I'll cut out 300 grand of interest. So there we were able to pay that off. But that's when the war chest pays off. You need to be able to swing with some cash. I mean, what did Microsoft just buy? They just bought some Activision or something.
69
cash. In cash. That's a war chest. That's right there.
Yeah. I mean, Apple, the same thing. It's like insane how much cash they have, and they still, but I think that's so valuable for everybody listening, that if you have your war chest, not for what the conventional that we hear is, hey, we need our money for a rainy day. Yes, that's one. But two, for opportunity to jump into something else that might be, wow, I was not expecting that. And this can happen in your own personal life. This doesn't have to be in business. This is much more important in business, but it's also important in your personal life, because maybe there's that investment, or maybe there's that opportunity, whatever it is, you want to be able to say yes to whatever comes that way.
Somebody starts another crypto coin and they say, just put $2,000 in, and you go, I don't have $2,000. and then of course they tell you, it's 200 grand that it's worth now. And you go, I didn't have $2,000. So it's the same thing in your own life. It's, the number is probably smaller, but it's the same sort of thing. You want to be able to seize the opportunity. Maybe you want to start a business. Yeah. Don't get yourself where you're house poor because your mortgage and the maintenance of that house takes your entire paycheck after groceries and gasoline. You want to be able to say, look, if I had to take a year off to start this business and put 50,000 of my own money in, or 100,000, I can do it, and I don't sweat it. That's who can start a business. If and that's how you talk your spouse into it. Let's say you're the wife who says, I got a great idea for a business. I'm leaving the law firm that I work in. The husband goes, you're leaving the law firm? Like you're making $250. What you can't quit? And she says, no, I got this thing. I want to do it. I'm passionate about it. We've been saving money. I can not work for a year, and we can put 300 of our cash in, and we can make this work. And if not, we'll be okay. We'll have lost the bet, but we won't be out on the street. You got to be able to do that. Otherwise, you can't, because the business starts and there's a million people going, I have this business idea. You know how many business ideas there are? 1 billion. Okay. And execution is 99% of it. It is not. I run into people who think it's 90% the idea. Bullshit. It's the persistence to work at it till you pull it off. And staying power, both emotionally, psychologically, and financially, to find out how to make it work profitably in the marketplace. Yeah. And to pivot when you need to.
Yeah, Fred, I think that's a massive point, that you have to be able to man the helm psychologically. And some of that has to do with, hey, I got some reserves here, so I'm not going crazy. Because if you don't have the money, then you become in this desperate state. And that happens to a lot of people. So for you guys mentioned how you went for 2 years and it was tough and it wasn't making the most money. How did you know to keep going forward? What was the rationale there?
You screw yourself, basically. You get you've got so much committed to it that you have to keep going. We owed, hundreds of thousands of dollars in media because they started to give us credit to place the radio and TV ads. So now, of course, let's do it. They're giving us credit. Let's go. And so we would buy more and more media, but it basically means you got to make it work because you owe hundreds of thousands of dollars, which means the business would have to go bankrupt and you may have to go personally bankrupt. When you start a business, you do all sorts of personal guarantees. You got a personal guarantee buying the phone system, personal guarantee leasing the office space. So going bankrupt doesn't matter. You can bankrupt the business, but then they're knocking on your door going, here's the personal guarantee for the lease for the next 5 years that you've got to pay, or you have to go personally bankrupt. So that's what that thinking about is about, is knowing what each piece is going to require, and you got to have the psychological wherewithal to get through it. But what we did is we just, we looked for the indicators that said this is working, and this part of it is profitable. This city is breaking through. So if we start another city, we have the economies of scale because we already get the call center. So start another city, have to overinvest in the media in the city, but then it flips to profitability. Okay. And we know it, and you start to develop the metrics. You say between 3 and 6 months, it's going to flip to profitability. And we just have to be able to ride it out. But we've got to get the dentist first, then we got to do the media, then we got to answer the phones, then we got to survive the overspending, because once it flips, it becomes profitable. And then you really have to understand all of the KPIs that everybody talks about, but you need to know your key performance indicators, the real ones, and stop deluding yourself about stuff like, what does it cost to actually get a client? What does it cost to keep them? What does it cost to serve them what they need? Is all that has to work in the whole formula. Or you can say, oh, well, we only, like if I looked at my numbers and said, oh, well, I only spend half of my money on advertising, it must be a really profitable business. Except I got people working for me, and rent to pay, and insurance to pay, and lawyers to pay, and payroll taxes to pay, and state and federal taxes to pay, and I'd like to pay me. And so all of a sudden the slices go by, and you go, wait a minute, it's only a 3% margin on this business after we pay everything. So you can oversimplify the metrics. You can hide the stats from yourself to make yourself think that you're on track. But we could smell that it was working, and we were just committed. We let the door lock behind us. Basically, we had to find a way to make it work. And that's when you get smart, is you got no choice but to figure it out.
Yeah, you become resourceful at that moment, regardless of what it is. I mean, you were probably dealing with a lot of just people talking like, is he crazy? Like, is he really doing this? Is he actually on his way out? Like, what's he doing? Like, how did that work with friends outside your circle? Were you still hanging out with them, or it was just all in on?
There were some friends that were envious of us and worried about us, and certainly family was. And then there was a whole bunch of people. The number of people who, when we told them what we were doing, said, that'll never work. My boss at the ad agency, when I told him I was quitting to do it, he said, that'll never work. And I would think, I kept imagined 10 years later, when everywhere he looked, there's 800 dentist commercials on TV. I imagine he's sitting there going, maybe that works. Maybe I was wrong. But Gary and I used it as motivation. Somebody said, oh, that'll never work. It's like, if you can see it and you believe in it, you can't listen to them. That's only motivation to prove them wrong, basically. Absolutely. You say, I am not crazy, and I'm not gonna try this and give up. You need persistence. This is the people who persist through whatever. There's some people that stand down. It's too much and they give up. And the people that succeed, never, something's got to stop them. The marketplace has to stop them. They will never stop themselves. Eventually, the marketplace says, I don't care about your product, and you're done for, right?
Yeah.
But most of the time, it's the person who says, no, I'm going to find a way to break through. I have a good friend, started a business. This product that she developed, she had all these grand schemes for it. And then all of a sudden, and nobody was buying it. And then all of a sudden somebody said, this thing's really good for this application. It was in the dental field. It was like the tiniest use of it in her mind. And all the other things were fantastic. Nobody cared about all the other things. They cared about the one thing that she did. So what did she do? She listened to the marketplace and put all her energy into marketing it, doing that. And of course, she's got a fabulous business now. And now it keeps expanding now because the marketplace says, we want more of it doing this or that or whatever. So you have to be able to listen so that you can either pivot or you can bail. You can go, there's a certain point where you go like, the don't give a shit factor is too big here. I got to give up. And take all the lessons from it. Every job Gary and I ever had informed our business. Every boss we ever had, every business model we experienced, every job we had taught us something that we either weren't going to do or needed to know how to do or already learned how to do. So everything is information as long as you mine it. Every failure is a stack of valuable information for you to work with, and you don't know when it's going to pay off. I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars producing an independent film just before the entire multimedia marketplace crashed in 2001. I could have just said, this is just a disaster. I've lost all of this money. Yeah. Instead, I had learned so much about how the movie making worked, and we had a really smart director who was hyper efficient in using his crew. And I just transferred that to the next 15 years of making TV commercials. So we were saving hundreds of thousands of dollars every year being more efficient making the TV commercials. So I took a $500,000 mistake and turned it into a multi-million-dollar payoff of knowledge.
Yeah,
that's what happens.
I think
it's
that's
tuition,
so important.
Right?
I think that's
very
so
expensive
important.
College. So.
Absolutely. I think it's so important that you brought that up, because the thing I always found is that the more broad we have a perspective, it gives us a lot more value because we can see things in different ways from our experiences. The other point you brought up that is so big is there are so many people that will go do something for the first time, fail, and go, that was really painful. I never want to do that again. But in reality, that was such a learning curve that it goes, okay, next time I'm going to do it, I'm going to be really good at this and let's move on. So it's really overcoming that failure portion, because most people are going to quit at that point where they go, wait, that was messed up. Like, I really didn't enjoy that. That was pain. And it can even be as simple as skiing. The first time you go skiing, you fall so many times that you're like, I don't want to ski anymore. And meanwhile,
or snowboarding, you fall for 3 days, right?
Exactly.
Snowboarding's 3 times worse.
So. Exactly. And now, was that snowboarding a vacation? No, I will not be doing that vacation again. But in reality, if you just did it again, you learned so much from it. So it's just another example, but Fred, you're spot on. That learning from it is so powerful.
And you really don't know when you're going to need it, when it's going to help. All you have to do is say, what's in it? What was I missing? And you've got to give up all the ego and say, okay, I paid the idiot tax. What do I need to not do again? If I started a business right now, I'd have a war chest. I'd build a culture with accountability. I built a great culture, but Gary and I didn't tell people what we expected for this great culture. So half the people gave us what we expected, and the other half coasted along. Went like, wow, this is a really comfortable place, and I can, phone in work or do work at 70% power. My motto is, I'm making a great place for you to work, and I need you to bust ass while you're here, because everybody else is going to do that, and it's not fair to them that you don't. So I'm really comfortable firing you if you don't, because this is a great place to work, and everybody here earns it. It's a whole different way to approach it than we approached it in the first 15 or 20 years. We were way off on how to do that properly. Hard lesson to learn, but now I can coach anybody. I can help an entrepreneur or a CEO who's going, look, I need to build a really great culture. And I can say, make sure the accountability is there, because it's easy to build a great culture, and it's easy to have them take everything for granted.
100%. So Fred, let's dive into that a little bit. So now business is done. You ended up getting out of there, the 1-800. What are you up to now? I know you got I see it in the background, the Super Bowl book, but what are you doing with this coaching?
So I started out as a very shy, underconfident person, and I missed a lot of opportunities in business and jobs and relationships and fun, adventure, and it made me angry. And I saw bold people, and I wondered how they were like that. I thought they might have been born that way, because why didn't they feel rejection like I did? Or why didn't they, why did failure bounce off of them? And why do they just try stuff? And where did their confidence come from? So I had to figure it out. And I did, but it took me a long time to really get to where I was. And I did all of these things along the way. I did improv comedy, which is one of the best things you can do to develop one of the most versatile life skills possible, which is to trust your creativity and to know how to build something gradually. My book, Super Bowl, is full of exercises that start at a really basic level, just like improv. Improv starts non-verbally when you first learn to do it. And then before you're done, you can walk on a stage with 3 other people, take a suggestion from the audience, and create an entire scene. Nothing prepared. Once you've done that, going on stage prepared, pretty easy, because you've got something to work with. So that was one of the most powerful things that I did, to just give me this level of confidence in my ability to present and be in public and interact with people. And then I looked at all the other ways of interacting with people in a more relaxed and more focused way. All the things we don't learn to do, how to make eye contact. A lot of people don't even know how to shake hands. So all of this stuff adds up to valuable life skills, so that when you meet people you want to meet, you can connect with them. And this was what I really learned very gradually. But at one point I was giving a lecture to a bunch of high school students, and I was rattling off my life lessons. And one of the life lessons is boldness is a superpower. And they said, that's great, but how do we do it? And I gave them a couple of examples, but I hadn't distilled it down to how I did it. So I made a public declaration. I said, I will write a book about this that you will have. So of course, once you do that publicly, now you got to figure out how to do it. And so I worked a couple more years on the book, and finally I finished it during 2020, and then got it published last year in October. And it teaches a systematic way that anyone can build their confidence and boldness up in a really fast way, just by using exercises. But you have to flip your mindset. You have to be really frustrated with being underconfident. You have to stack up enough missed opportunities where you say, that's enough of this. And when you become bolder, when you develop what I call being super bold, you don't become a different person. You get to bring your full self to the world, your real, true, full self. You're not holding back anymore, but you're not missing opportunities. You're getting
Yeah.
comfortable taking risks. You're building up the neural pathways so that your default mode is boldness. And it's extremely possible. And I've helped people do it. But I did it to myself. I mean, I can walk on a stage of 5,000 people. I can't wait to get out there. And I can meet anybody. I've met billionaires. And I've been in the room where I'm the brokest and least successful person in the room. And I'll talk to anybody because they're all human beings. And that's what you find out. When you treat people that way, I've interacted with really successful people that a lot of people go, oh, he's not going to want to talk to me. He's Sir Richard Branson. He won't talk to me. And because I know enough not to interview him and ask him for money or ask him to help me with my business, I know how to have a normal conversation with him. I end up having a great interaction with him. These are life skills that will make all the difference, but you got to do it while it's harmless. You have to develop the abilities before you get in a situation where it matters. You're not going to summon it at the last minute. We don't have that in us, most of us. Some people they never had it knocked out of their system, right? They didn't. Most people our confidence was suppressed over the course of our life, either from parental messaging or social messaging or a series of rejections or embarrassments and stuff like that. And they all hurt too much. And bold people were lucky enough to let it bounce off them.
Yeah.
But, you want to approach it like the innocence of a child. I love this story that happened to me recently. I got in my elevator in my building, and this mom got in with her 4-year-old girl, and she had her bike with her, and she had a cool little helmet on. So I said, oh, I really like your helmet. And she goes, yeah, it's got feathers on it. And she was very proud of it. And I said, do you want to push my floor for me? Because, kids, they love to push the elevator buttons. Yeah. And so I said, I'm number 4. So she pushes my floor, and then she pushes her floor. And she says, oh, you're only 1 floor away from us. We can come up and visit sometime. Oh, and I thought, isn't that great? Like this, and I said, what the beauty of it was? And I said, oh yeah, you get to meet my cat. It'll be wonderful. But it worked because she had no ulterior motive. She had no agenda. She was innocently just saying, hey, we could hang out. And that's what you have to lose when you're meeting somebody for the first time. Lose the agenda. Make it about making them feel. The only agenda you should have is make them feel better about themselves. Make them feel like the most interesting person in the room. You develop those life skills, you're unstoppable.
100%.
That's what I teach in the book.
Absolutely. I love that. And the books that have the action steps too, where they actually have the exercises, it makes all the difference because now you're actually applying the skills.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I want you to do a bold move every day, and then make it, and then up the ante to they get trickier and more challenging. When you read the level 5 exercises, you go, I don't know if I could ever do that, but you'll work your way up to that. But it's going to start by just talking to strangers, and if you can't do that, just smile at strangers. And this is the way I teach it: is aim for failure. Smile at everybody you meet until somebody doesn't smile back. And then don't take it on, because you have no idea how bad a day they're having. Or maybe they just got bad teeth and they don't smile at anybody. And you just let it go. You just keep doing it. But what happens is 99% of the time, people are going to smile back. And you go, oh, well, that's kind of nice. Everybody just smiles at me. And you realize that you're wrong about all of this social interaction stuff that you've fixated on as, oh, it's going to go bad, or they won't like me, or they're going to judge me, or they have they're going to think I'm weird. We come up with all of this crazy stuff, but we're wrong.
Yeah, it's so true. And the biggest part about all of that, I think it is that you can control any interaction you have, because most people are so caught off guard. Like, for example, we were walking around my condo, And me and my girlfriend goes, wow, that's like a really cute dog. I'm like, well, why don't you tell the owner? Because that's a really nice compliment to them. And she's like, no, no, no. Like I couldn't tell them. And that was like 6 months ago. And I was like, are you like, you have to compliment, just give it to them. And then this happened like 2 days ago. She actually complimented the person. Person's all excited. They appreciate it. Like, there's no reason that we should be storing our compliments so nobody can feel them. Like,
We're so
if
stingy with those things. It's ridiculous. I mean, I tell people you should compliment anybody you meet in line at your coffee place. You're at Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or whatever. Talk. This is a great opportunity to talk to a stranger in the most
yeah,
harmless way without an
yeah,
agenda. That's a
yeah.
great looking jacket. Where did you get that? That really looks great on you. How does that ruin their day? This is the other thing I do when I get in a Starbucks. I'll get my Starbucks. I'll take a sip and I'll go back to the barista and I'll say, "Excuse me." Now they're worried because it's wrong, aren't they? Because there's like there's this recoiling moment, and I'll just say, "This is absolutely perfect," and you see the smile that hits them because one, they had a negative expectation. And how many people they're making 200, 300 drinks a day and nobody's
Yeah,
telling them that they like it? Why
yeah,
not be the one to tell them it was great? Why not
yeah,
sprinkle this positive fairy dust around? And you know what? You feel great doing it. You tell somebody, and here's what I even challenge myself because we all have judgments about everybody, right? Oh, that guy's got weird hair, or why the heck is she dressed like
yeah,
that? We got like all of this stuff. I will take the thing that I have a judgment about and force myself to compliment them with it,
wow,
just because I'm wrong, right? I'm misjudging them. I'm judging the entire person by the mustache, right? Or something. It's totally ridiculous but we all do it. And I'll just say, wow, that hat looks amazing on you. When I'm in my mind, I've already thought that hat looks ridiculous on you. And you know what? They start beaming.
because that's their
It's like,
uniqueness.
wow, yeah. And you just go, why do I have to be a jerk? Like, why do I have to be that? What am I getting out of that? Why don't
What?
I just be generous with these things and even trick and you know what? You could end up having a 20-minute conversation with that person and
Yeah,
realize it's a human being.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And the really interesting thing is, and I've done this before, is when you go out of your way to try to make people smile. Like, who'd you make smile today? What was your special deed of today? Fred, I didn't expect this podcast to start going this direction, but I think this is awesome because people need to hear about this positivity. It needs to make them. They need to realize that they have the superpower. Everyone has this. It's not about the money. It's not about the time. It's not about any of that. It's about making people feel special, which doesn't take that much effort. It really doesn't.
and, and if what you want to get good at is asking questions instead of feeling like you have to tell somebody how interesting you are. You just keep firing questions at them. If you want to make somebody feel like the most important person in the room, stay focused on them, completely on them, and just keep asking them questions. Where's the most interesting place you went last year? Oh, I went to Rome. Now, what normal reaction is for people is go, oh yeah, I was in Rome last year and I saw this and I saw that. And we end up trying to play top this. I had a better time in Rome than you. Instead, you say, okay, what was your favorite place to eat in Rome? Oh, it was this place in the, like this piazza. And wait a minute. What's the name of that piazza again? Tell me more about, is there a gelato place in that too? I think I saw that. Oh yeah, that's where the gelato. And you could do that for 30 minutes with somebody and they will think you're the most interesting person in the room and they will know nothing about you except your name because you were interested in them. And they're going to go tell
And
other people. They go, Jordan was like, this guy's amazing. You got to meet him. Well, what's amazing about him? It's like, well, you got to meet him because they don't have anything.
I don't know. I don't know anything about him. He was a nice guy.
But he's great. He's fantastic. He's just so likable. And that's what you can do. And I've seen people do that, and I've certainly done it myself now that I know how to do it. You can do it with 20 people in a room, one at a time. And then you can, what I do now, I find that the wallflower, I like aim for him or aim for her, because I could see them, they're looking at the record collection or something like that instead of meeting people. And I'll go over and I'll start talking to them. And then I'll introduce them to somebody else I met. I'll put them loose. And they start to, that thing makes me interesting that I did that, because it was a gift I gave them. It's like, you don't have to be shy. We're all just a bunch of people here. Come on over and talk and find out how interesting this person is. And you can do that stuff. And this is when I talk about, one of the things I talk about in my book is what charisma is just being confident wherever you are. You are always acting like you belong wherever you are. And people sense that about you. They are magnetically drawn to that. And it's a responsibility. You want to use it generously, not to take advantage of people, but to make people feel better about themselves. You will make connections that will make an enormous difference in your life. And they may not, there may be no monetary value to it at all, but it'll be, like at one point I said to this woman, I said, and she was dressed head to toe in yellow. Like it was like she was working construction or something. Like it was like a beacon. And I said, oh, wow, that color looks amazing on you. And she said, oh, thank you so much. She says, I was feeling so depressed today that I thought, I'm just going to wear the brightest color I can find to just see if I can feel better about myself. And I thought, wow. She was in a dark place, and I could have sat back and said, she looks ridiculous. What the heck is she wearing yellow for? And instead, I said, that looks amazing on you. And she was trying to lift herself up, and I jumped on board and lifted her up. I don't need 20 bucks for that. I don't need anything for that. So, and it also, another thing that I people don't realize is how much they miss out on because they won't do that, but they won't just, something tells them they shouldn't. I was with my cousin's daughter. We were at this dinner at this wonderful hotel restaurant, and she's 18 and she's going to pastry school. She's about to start to go to pastry school. And the chef comes out and talks to somebody else in the group, because that she was doing one of our my other cousins is a PR person, and she was trying to involve him in something. And I said to my cousin's daughter, I said, you need to go talk to this chef. And she was like, she started to back away from me, like I was going to make her do it. And I said, you can just go up and say, I just wanted to let you know it was a great meal and the desserts were really special, and it's special to me because I'm going to pastry school.
Yeah.
I don't know what you think. And she couldn't do it. And I looked at her and went like, I can't help her in the moment. I can't get her through this, but I'm going to talk to her later about it, because I'm looking at me at 18 years old. I can't walk up to anybody, right? I'm looking at young Fred, who had exactly the same problem. There was some horror that she was imagining in her head, and she was unworthy to talk to him. She had told herself she was not worthy. And I talked to her later and I said, here's what was more likely to happen. Was you were just going to tell him you really loved the meal, and he was going to thank you. And you were going to say, I really love the way the desserts were done because I'm going to pastry school. And he would have said, what do you think he would have said? Get out of my face? Or he would have said, more likely, really, where are you going to pastry school? Oh, Johnson and Wales. Oh, wow, that's great. Would you like a tour of the kitchen and see how we make the pastries? That's what could have happened. Here's what else could have happened. He could have said, we're looking for interns every summer. We can never find them. to work during the summer with us. Would you like to come next summer and work with us after you've done, your first year of pastry school? That's what could have happened. And all you had to do was tell them you really liked the dinner. And I wanted that to burn in her head. I wanted the pain to sink in, because that pain is what makes you go, enough of this shit, right? Enough of, I'm not gonna miss any more of these things. What the hell is my problem? And then you fix it.
Yeah, and it's that scenario that people don't realize, because I've done this a bunch where you see people and they go out and they're like I've had this happen where they go, oh, Jordan, he's going to talk to these random people again. And then what do you know? You're talking to them. Then you get invited to this cool thing. And now I'm like, guys, do you want to come? And they're like, oh, yeah, of course I want to come. But like that 30 seconds was really awkward. And I don't know. And it's never, oh, nice job, you did that on your own. No, it was you talked to the people. It happens all the time. And people don't realize that 30 seconds of friction, once you get past that, everybody's a human. And if they have something to give, they usually want to tell you about it.
Yeah.
And they want to help people. Most
Yeah,
people are inherently
a
good.
lot of people really get off on helping people, especially if it doesn't cost them anything. And if you seem like somebody to bring along, to involve, engage with, they're going to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Fred, you are incredible. I'm loving the knowledge. It's amazing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no, this has been a lot of fun. We'll probably have to do another one. But Fred, where can people find you?
So easiest way is fredjoyal.com, my website. You can download the first chapter of the book. Books are also available on Amazon. I read the audio book. So there's a Kindle, there's a hardcover, and there's an audible version. And also the exercises, if you read a digital version or listen to it, you can download the exercises from my website so that you have a physical copy, because it's about doing stuff. I don't want you to read the book and go, oh, these are some really great ideas. I want you to, it's about take action, do the exercises every day, do something, do a bold move every day, and watch what happens, what to yourself, and watch how that affects the reactions you get around you. Stuff will come out of nowhere, unexpected. You'll put your energy in one direction, stuff will pop in another direction, because you're radiating this, hey, I'm open to new stuff, bring it on.
Yeah,
so
and you're building up.
That's the easiest way to do it. If you're looking for a keynote speaker, I love doing that. I love transforming teams, taking bold people, making them super bold, energizing teams. If you're an individual businessman, executive, CEO that feels like you need coaching, that's one of the things I do. So you can book a half-hour consultation with me. You can do it right on the website, fredjoyal.com. That's how you find me.
Amazing. And I love the fact that it's building up the tolerance of being able to be bold. Incredible. Thank you, Fred.
Yes, you're welcome.